Hi, Pam.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hi. I'm gonna mute myself.
No worries. I'm glad that you were able to log on. How's traffic going?
Finally we passed the accident. It was 3 cars and a truck with a boat.
Oh, where are you guys coming back from?
It was pretty bad. That was right before Jupiter. We had to drop off my mom at home. She's close to Melbourne.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's good. All right.
Yeah, so it was
Maria, hello.
Long wait.
Hey, ladies.
Hello. Hello.
Hi.
Everyone.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
It's so nice to meet you. I'm Pam.
Yvette, nice to meet you.
Yvette, nice to meet you. This is Diana, Jessica, Leslie, who's in a little interesting traffic situation going down there, but she's thankfully on audio, so I'm glad she was able to join us.
Awesome.
And then we should have Maria on shortly, and I have acquiesced to everyone's request. I am now recording them. So if you have any need to jump on the call, I will figure out how to send it. I'm not that gifted right now, but we'll figure it out a little later. So at least it is recording, and I see it recording on my end. So then hey, Maria.
Hi, Maria.
So Yvette, all I know right now about you is that you are a fairly new BCBA coming on to join us during a very interesting season, because coronavirus is very interesting season to join us.
I know.
Absolutely. There's no time like the present. So you're good to go there. And so then let me give you an idea of kind of who everyone is in a nutshell. I'll let them introduce themselves. We have,
Diana, so you can skip her.
Say it again.
I know me and Diana are friends, so you can.
Oh, that's what I mean. Poor Diana. She shares my last name, so I have a very huge camaraderie with her right now. So we have Diana, who's an analyst, Jessica, who's also an analyst, Maria, who is a BCABA, hopefully sitting for her exam early 2021, and then Leslie, who is starting off her supervision experience. Leslie got just nicely involved and enveloped here, and I'm kind of excited because she gives me can someone who's not really necessarily versed in all the terminology understand where we are, and I really like having her as a part here. Hopefully we can convince her to become a BCBA and not just a BCABA. That's also my secondary agenda.
I think so. I think I'm gonna work on that route.
Yeah, so we're in the mode of convincing her for that. So Yvette is joining us now, and then Diana joined us, I would say, in the last week or so in our supervision fold. So the purpose of the meetings, just to kind of give you both an idea, is right now we're launching a pilot program to help better shape and develop new analysts coming along, as well as people in their last year of their supervision to become an analyst, to really kind of be prepared in what books don't teach you. So all these interesting life things that go evolving, how to interact with a parent, how to really run an assessment, how to complete an insurance review, how do you not get sent for appeals, what is the ethics behind taking a caseload, et cetera, how do I have a family? I'm not going to do that one because I'm not there yet. How do I have a family imbalance, like being an analyst with a family? I'll have a cool panel for people of different careers for that. But just kind of figuring out a good mentorship model for kind of how to start the path on to being an analyst. So something I wanted to review, because I feel like, and I want to make this much more of a round table, and I really wanted to start off this way, is I really want to go over and re-review what are the supervision requirements. For people who are starting off as analysts, you will easily, and probably within the first 2 months of you doing this, are going to get asked if you can supervise. And I want you guys to be very well versed, because from my understanding, actually not my understanding, in my experience, that's what I'm going to say, I have generally had people request to become a supervisee very early on within the field, and don't really even understand or have taken the time to read the BACB's requirements. So it actually recently happened to me. Someone who I think is very actually knowledgeable, who has good experience, who's a great therapist. And I was like, have you even read the board's requirements? She's like, can we start? I'm like, sure. But like, you need to sign a contract. You understand you have to sit in a contract. There's a way we have to track things. She was like, looking at me like I had 16 eyes. And I was like, yeah, okay. So we can't start before you do your homework. So kind of understanding what are the ethics behind that. The requirements behind that. And then I want to talk about the ethical part of training in terms of, do you feel equipped to really do that? And then what should an outline look like, if that makes sense? Cool. So how about we start, we're going to start in a two-prong system because we're in the middle of a change. Technically, we should start to gear people towards the 2022 model, but we're still in the 2018 model that's like, you need 1,500 hours, 50-50, restricted, unrestricted. And let me put a disclaimer that it is not my fault that the board makes this extremely illegible and confusing. And now when you have a question, unlike in the past when they would answer you, they just say, see your supervisor. Great. So even if you're a supervisor and you send the question, they say, read the manual. So if you're the supervisee, they tell you go to supervisor. And then if you're the supervisor, they tell you read the manual. And the manuals themselves are like really, really unclear. And so sometimes it takes brainstorming and different kind of organizations and different, you need to have a good kind of team to call upon to know what the hell does this even mean? I mean, Maria nicely kind of even hooked me up with one of her professors, and we had a chat for a while, and he's like, damn, this is confusing. I'm like, oh, I know, I miss indirect and direct days. What are they calling all these weird old things and supervision group and this? It just gets more confusing. I feel like as time evolves. It used to be super simple. Direct, indirect, supervision. All of that has to equal a number. Now it's like, well, supervision is embedded under restrictive and unrestricted activities. And so does anybody feel really fluent in what are the guidelines, whether now or the 2022 guidelines, enough to kind of explain a little bit of it?
I don't even remember.
You want to try, Maria? So let's say you're going to, we're going to try the supervised independent fieldwork model. How can you explain that to me in normal people English? I can't, Leslie, she's too much.
Okay, so there are 3 types of hours you can get. The first one is supervised independent fieldwork. The two other, it's intensive practicum and practicum. The last 2 you can only get through a university program, and the first one is usually what you get if you're not enrolled in a university program. So it's just like regular work.
Perfect. Nice English. Pause right there because I just realized I need to do something. I need to actually, it might be really helpful for you to have the guidelines up via screen. And of course I deleted this before I come on here because I'm crazy. All right, guys, I'm going to share my screen with you, and then I'm going to have Maria kind of take over this part. The reason why what I want to make this kind of new for you guys is I want to make sure everyone gets a chance to practice being fluent in things. So within every single kind of meeting we have, we're all going to take turns explaining and talking about things. So why you need to be fluent in not only understanding, but also vocalizing. Let me go to the part that you're talking about, Maria. Here we are, right down here. All right, go ahead, friend.
Okay. Yeah. So, and like when you agree your hours for supervised independent fieldwork, you need to get 1,500 to be counted towards experience, and no less than 50% of it should be unrestricted activities. So you can have like 60% of restricted and 40 of unrestricted. It has to be 50% of unrestricted at least. You can go more, like it can be 100 unrestricted, but like you should be no more than 50 in restricted. So what means restricted is usually what's referred to direct therapy with a client. So if you're working directly, you're not. Like anything else that is usually what BCBA's work is. So for example, you write in a treatment, you supervise others, I know you conduct a training, you do an assessment, you do observation, data collection. It all can be counted towards unrestricted activities.
Beautiful.
It used to
And I like the way you
do-
explain that really like holistically, so you can get a good kind of foundation and understanding. In 2022, the minimum is going to be now 60%. So what you're talking to is before January 1st of 2022. Up in 2022, which is probably most people you are supervising from now on moving forward, need to have 60% unrestricted.
And you have to have 2,000 instead of 1,500 for hours for supervising independent field work.
I think they put it down here. Give me a second. Let me see if they put the new requirements. They were going to.
No, I don't think so. Like it should be separate thing.
Yeah, the BACB. Why do you make things so difficult? Okay. All right. So then we'll go on the 2022 one, but we'll go with what's on now.
So the supervision period, consider it 1 calendar month. So it's from the first day of, I don't know, like July, for example, till the last day of July.
Mm-hmm.
And signature and this, oh my God, form has to be signed no later than 30 days after the month, the end of month. So for example, if there is a July, you sign in supervision form for July, you shouldn't sign it later than like August 30. Yeah, August 30.
Do you know why they did that?
Actually, I have some like thoughts about it.
What is your idea why they did that? I'm just curious.
I think something like they just make it up, like hours, like has to be fraud.
We had fraud issues. So lots of people were making up hours. And so obviously if you don't remember what time and date you were doing things at, that's what you get. So that's the reason why that rule was actually implemented in the, oh my God, I think I tested in the 2nd or 3rd edition, in the 4th and 5th edition. That was retested and completed. The other thing that looks a little different that was specified but not really made clear in the 3rd edition versus the 4th of this experience standard is the number of observations and contact that you had to have a supervisor. When 100 years ago I was doing a therapist, I would be supervised because most clients were private pay. It was expensive to have a BCBA once a month. And God help you, I don't care what the client does, I'm coming once a month and that's it. Yeah. So then when you wanted to get supervised work, you had to pay for it. And then if you didn't pay for it, you paid for it with your life, like I like to say. So I paid for it with my life and my blood and my sweat and tears and gas to become supervised, to have a supervisee instead of paying for it cash and whatever. It all folds out to it being well in the future, but I'm glad that they also changed this. So now you need to have 2 direct observations and 2 contacts with your supervisor. Within the coronavirus period, they've also changed this to also include video teleconferencing, so that's been really good. And that's, I'm emphasizing probably a little bit more the independent fieldwork part because more than likely you're going to go in that avenue. If, for example, PBS has a practicum, Maria's part of the practicum. They have to complete things that are more of an intense rate. So they require, as you can see here in the bottom, higher rate of supervision, more contacts with that. And yeah, you get to go at a higher, at a faster rate. Oh, I'm at the BCBA level here. There we go. You have to complete less hours, but the hope and the intention is that it occurs at a much more intense rate. Now, that can be a good or a bad thing, right? I feel like if you're going to complete things in less amount of time or hours, because obviously it would suppose that if you're doing a practicum, you're going to do it within probably a year or 2. You really have to be very intentional about what your supervision looks like. And what I like to do on the onset, because it seems like I'm hearing the same story over and over and over and over again, and I don't know why, is people have failed to get really thorough, good supervision. And that will come to haunt you when you become an analyst in more than one way, right? Like you're not equipped to necessarily run an assessment or do things because either you got like gaga work to do during unrestricted time and you didn't really get the time and the grace period to mess up doing things. Like getting tongue twisted when you're trying to do a parent training, understanding how to really write a treatment plan, And trust me, if you're with a shark, they will eat you alive. Who could be a shark? A shark could be a boss. A shark could be a parent. A shark could be an insurance reviewer on the other end. So once you encounter a shark, you are going to get eaten alive. So I feel like it's been a big thing of mine, and I kind of constantly say it, become a good supervisor so you then build good supervisees, and then we kind of start cleaning out house of not having all these analysts in the field that don't know what the hell they're doing. Because one thing is we're all gonna have moments that we have cases or we encounter situations where we need help. That's okay. But if you don't know the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s and are doing unethical behaviors and like not writing treatment plans or writing really crappy treatment plans, like, come on, those are not mistakes that you need to know. That's incompetence. And that's something very different than needing help on a particular case or an issue. So that is kind of a big thing I say. So take in mind, I feel like when I get 1,500 hours with somebody, that means I have only 1,500 hours to build this person to be the best analyst they can be, because at the end of the day, they're attached to your name. And I don't want people going out there saying I trained them and they're all incompetent, because you know what? This field is very small. Even if it's growing, it's small. So you know what good people come out of where and what companies are good where, especially within an area. And you're going to know these people like in the same division and circle as you continue to move forward. Guys, give me just a second. Ahmad, you okay? Are you sure? I think my husband broke something really bad. Give me 5 seconds.
Are you sure? I don't know. Oh my God.
I love it. Not so much. Hi. So sorry, friends. You put the citrus juicer down, our garbage disposal, and it sounded like the whole world was falling apart. But that's fun adventures of being married. It's all like, then he's like, sorry. Oh, all good. So sorry, friends. This has never happened, Yvette, in a training. So sorry. He generally is like very over there, but I don't know what happened.
I have a 3-year-old and they're, I have to like lock doors. I'm like hiding in a bathroom. Like
Hiding in a bathroom.
Yeah. So, thank you. We all have compassion and we all have situations. Something I love about PBS is like we love to bring our family stories and just like the insanity of things that happen to us in the middle of sessions or whatever. So it's all fine. It's all good. We all give each other grace for that. So in case your 3-year-old pops by, just say hi, make everybody say hi, and then keep them moving. It's all good. Nobody, no harm, no foul. So just kind of be very intentional. I only have this season to build this person to be who they're supposed to be. So let me make sure that I'm going to perpetuate someone who knows what they're doing. Before any supervision can occur, you need to make sure you complete your 8-hour training, right? My first initial advice to every single person who becomes an analyst is do that crap like a month after you become an analyst. Like, it's like not really 8 hours. Just get it done. You can pay anybody to do it. However, it doesn't do a great job of teaching you what are the actual supervision standards like. It just tells you, basically it reads this paper out loud to you and then tells you to sign it and say that you can now supervise.
I have a question. So, so I completed this 8-hour supervision course as like being BCABA.
Mm-hmm.
When I am BCBA already, will it transfer automatically or I need to start over?
I would probably do it again.
Oh,
I know. I'm sorry about losing the next 4 hours of your life. I would do it again because then you have to upload that certificate to your BACB portal.
And I already uploaded, like it says,
right,
like
but right now it has it timed as a BCABA. So that you don't want your training to backdate before you were an analyst, because that would invalidate somebody's supervision. That's the reason I would do it again. Now, if you email the board website and they tell you something different, please feel free to tell me, and I would be happy to recall my choice and answer very, very quickly. So I'm just going to go up here where it says supervisee requirements. Obviously, you must hold your BCBA or your BCBAD and has to be in good standing, meaning you have to have completed your CEUs, paid your $200 to press go, et cetera, et cetera. The second point, a licensed or registered psychologist, that really applies more to like North Carolina. There are other states that have this kind of extra sequences, or you need to be a VCS instructor. That's few and far between. That's not a ton. So make sure you complete the training, and then you need to make sure, I hate that they even have to say this, but obviously this is common sense. The person is not related to you. Employment is, does not include compensation to the supervisor by training supervision purposes. That doesn't mean that you're not supposed to get paid for services. It just means you can't have a monetary relationship that would be imperative to your ability to provide supervision to that person. So no crazy entanglement, subordinate or employed the trainee during the experience supervision. The trainee can't be your babysitter, your nanny, your soccer coach, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You need to make sure you maintain a professional relationship throughout the duration of your supervision period. That doesn't mean you need to be mean to that person, subjugated. Like, I think we all want respect and we all should give respect. So vice versa. I'd be very curious. Oh, look at this. Okay, this is really interesting. A lot of people don't know that. And I teach supervisees to do this. I say, hey, do you know if I meet the supervisor requirements? Because they go around asking like Tweedledoo, Dumb, and One to come be their supervisor.
You can see it on the website.
What?
You can see it on the website if the BC.
Right, but you as a supervisee don't have the instinct.
I do. I checked everybody.
Maria, we're gonna go with our theory for you about everything. You're Russian, so everything is because you're Russian.
I already have the answers. I looked them up. I have a notebook.
Yeah, like, most people don't know my number, which is hilarious. Like, I have to give them my number. You should have known my number because you should have looked me up and see if I'm in good standing and see if I completed my 8-month supervision, 8-hour supervision. So I always that, right? Like, you're responsible for your supervision too. So don't come to me and say like, oh, you didn't teach me anything. What, this is not kindergarten. Like, you need to also read the paper and do your double checking too. So this is the first time I also want to say, like, this is what it is. On top of, so then once we're all clear that I have the supervision, the standards to meet for a supervisor to a supervisee, then we should move on to writing a contract. Here's a contract outline. PBS sort of makes this really easy for you. It's found on the drive. And we generally tend to use a multiple supervisor model because pre-Rona times, most people had 2 supervisors at least on their caseload. Plus, I think of the breadth and diversity of experience. I don't always do everything 100% correct. You don't necessarily always want to be me. You don't always want to be Maria. You don't always want to be Amanda. You don't always want to be Janelle. You want to be a nice conglomeration of the people who trained you. And a lot of your supervisors are going to have skills and deficits in different areas. So I always think it's much better to do a group plan supervision if you're doing supervised independent field work. But what I always tell a supervisee is you should have a head person doing your supervision, which means one person at the end of the day should be responsible for giving the majority of your hours and have like kind of a checklist in their brain of where things should be at. And I'm going to kind of discuss with you guys what the flow of an evolution of a supervision should look like by the end, so that you have an understanding of where to guide somebody. Because if someone's like, hey, Jessica, I want to be a supervisor today. You're like, yeah. So then what do you do? Like, what are you supposed to teach them? Because there's so much that we know that we don't necessarily teach on purpose. Like, what does that mean? So we want to be very intentional about like teaching them those things on purpose. Okay. So then a supervision contract. Let's pull up. Leslie, you okay if I pull up yours?
I can pull up mine if you want, or like whatever.
He's the most recent one, that's why. I'm gonna ask her for hers.
Okay.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yes, sort of. There's a list of suggested. So she asked a really good question. Is there a list of indirect work that's listed on the PBS drive? And yes, there is. But I want you guys to understand it's not about you kind of finding things to do. That's a really great way of being proactive, but it really should be guided along by a supervisor. So there's things on the list, for example, like writing or emulating a behavior plan. You don't do that when you're starting off. You need to do that like coming a little bit later on, probably past hour 800 to 1,000, that you really even have an understanding. And it also depends your coursework. That's why you should have a good relationship with your supervisee as a supervisor to know kind of where are you along on your casework? What have you understand and learned? Because there's also you need to work hand in hand with the person's schooling to know where they're at. So hold on, guys. Sorry, I'm going to pull up Leslie's contract here. Somewhere over the rainbow.
I have my opened, but
you have one that's a little bit older than ours. Yeah, because I think we revised it just a little bit. Maybe we did or we didn't. I'm gonna figure it out. But I know hers is the recent one. That's why I wanted to show you guys.
Pam, and if we're going to terminate the contract, let's say with Katrina, which I haven't done anything with her, what is the procedure for that?
That's actually a really great question. I'll show you right now. So let me bring yours up right here. So this is what a sample supervision contract for PBS looks like. It's very similar to what the board recommends. The language is almost verbatim. But before the onset of a supervision relationship, you need to sign the contract. Nothing on earth counts until that contract is signed and that person has initiated the first class. So when people are like, can you give me indirect work? Girl, I don't even know you. I don't have a contract with you. I'm not responsible for you. What are you talking about? So then people ask me for things all the time and I'm like, I can't even help you there. Now, if you get your supervisor to talk to me and I have some work and you guys coordinate, that's on you. But don't sit there and ask me for indirect hours, because then I already know, one, you didn't read the actual BACB supervisory requirements. Two, we haven't signed a contract, so you don't even understand what you're liable for, what I'm liable for. And then three, it's not even gonna count. So let's say you have, Leslie, remind me at the end to answer your question. Right now, our contract allows for a multiple supervisor model, and you can put it right here along with the supervisee's name. Then it goes through kind of what activities would be listed under supervision. So conducting assessments, designing and implementing a behavior analysis program, overseeing implementation, training, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then it talks about your responsibility and the supervisee's responsibility. How ethically they're supposed to proceed and take place. How feedback is supposed to be provided, whether webcam, videotape. I haven't seen anybody do videotape. That's been a really rare one. I know people do it via telehealth, but to my knowledge, I don't know anyone who's done videotape. That's like super old school. How many times you're supposed to receive supervision. Maria, that's why I didn't want to use your contract, because your contract's a little bit different here.
No, it is the same actually, but a company has a probably
practicum one.
FIT. Yes,
right.
It's a different.
So then
one.
The practicum one looks a little bit different because it actually depends what school you're going to. So like the ASU contract we have is actually a little bit different than the FIT one. So I just wanted to show the generic standard one. How many hours you're supposed to complete. So at a minimum, every supervisee in a month needs to complete between 20 and 130 hours towards their 1,500 total. It generally takes around 18 months if they're going to do it. A piece of advice I've learned to tell supervisees before we even start, especially now that the requirements are changing. I had someone come up to me the other day and say, I want to finish my training before December 2021. All right, girl, go to your calculator and divide how many weeks in the year are left and how many weeks you want to do it. Divide that by 130, because that's probably the max that you can do a month. How many months is it going to take you? And by the way, err on the side of cautions, 2 to 4 weeks, because you can get sick in the next year. You may want to take a vacation. Your doggy might die. I don't know, but you may need a month off from supervision. So make sure you also, from the beginning of your supervision, have your hours tracked very well. It is not my responsibility to track your hours. It is not. So whether you're on hour 400 or 600, I have an idea but I couldn't tell you right now Maria has 872 hours. Like I can't tell you that off the top of my head. I know she's somewhere near finishing and somewhere like, are we 3/4 along the way? Are we at 60% done? I can tell you that. But to the exact number, no. And that may screw you over if you're in that cutoff period between changing cycles. So I'm very cognizant of telling somebody, calculate how you want your rhythm and I can hold you accountable to that. That also tells me you're going to be proactive in like making sure you look for indirect work. So that's a really good piece of advice that I learned from kind of doing this a little bit. Kind of what is your responsible behavior? How do you have to have things given to me? How I'm not necessarily negotiating your money. Don't ask me about money. I don't know what you get paid. I don't care. I don't want to know. That's above my pay grade. As long as I'm working in this company, I do not work in the financial sector of this company. So I can give you an idea of what approximate rates are, but don't ask me to negotiate your salary. I can't do that. We have that in there because someone tried it. That's why. What's confidential? Yep. And how long you need to keep records. So everybody, I kind of can show you guys if you'd like layout on my computer when how I organize people's files. Now it's nice because it's all electronic. And then I keep them on an extra drive because I have to have a copy of them as well as a supervisee for 7 years. So that's a very good thing to note and understand. Leslie, here you go. You can terminate within 14 days written notice. And where you would put that is down here, my friend, where she signed. So usually,
Okay.
is this Katrina? No, who's
No.
it? Dios mío.
This is Katrina, like.
Leslie, you gotta work on your signature. It's a little crazy.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
no.
Katrina, right here, you would put 4/20 till, let's say it was 14 days from now, August 7th or whatever. I don't know what day it would be, 14 days from now. And then
But
you put
like,
through August 7th, whatever. And then that's it.
actually, I wouldn't do this because if you get in like your BCBA pretty soon, you don't know, you may be assigned a case with Katrina because she has a lot of cases.
I agree. Good point to bring up. You don't know whether you're gonna, the only time I would actually recommend you terminate a supervision agreement is if your supervisor leaves the company. That's it.
Yeah.
So I would never agree to that unless it's that case. So, but if you wanted to, that's the way you would do it. And that's the technical way you would document that, is here. So that when you come back, if you ever get audited, they know that they look for those periods in between time. So that's for a supervisee relationship. All right, guys.
By the way, I just want to double check. So there is like 2 types of supervising. The first one, you supervising the client, and no matter what the therapist like going to the case, you just here for the client to make sure like therapist is getting like all the procedures correctly. The supervision we are talking about is about like person who wants to get certified.
Correct. I'm not talking about an RBT requirements coordinator or an RBT supervisor, or that's something separate on its own when we'll talk about how to kind of best monitor a client or supervision.
So basically, we only need the supervision contract if the person, supervisee, he wants to be certified, like that.
And in general, in our company, right? I'm not saying other people's company. I would say a good 75% of people are on that track. So you're going to get asked really quickly, can you be a blah, 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 blah. The person doesn't know you from 2 cents sometimes, you don't know that person's work ethic. That person, I am very weary of signing people to be a supervisee because I understand the responsibility it means to be a supervisor. And if I cannot provide effective quality supervision at that time, and I've been burned enough to do it, then I will not do it. The other thing I have also learned is I will not immediately sign someone upon starting to work at PBS, right? Like just like Steve Harvey's like 90 days. I need 90 days to try. I need 90 days to try you out. See if you can show up to my case. Are you going to be ethical on my case? Are you? Because you know how many people filter out of here in 90 days? Not in a bad way, but just, oh yeah, we all get therapists who are like. So if you go in and you start a supervision relationship right away and you don't even see the person's pattern or work ethic, I do want to get to a place, and I'm going to ask Maria, I'm not sure how comfortable she is with that, but we'll kind of figure it out later on. I don't feel like anyone within the 90-day probation period should be signed on to be a supervisee. I just feel like you can't. You need to, and I think it's fair. You need to work 90 days, and we need to see what you're like in 90 days. Now, after
Yeah.
90 days, mahomeno, I can see you. The only people who would be the exception to that rule are practicum students, because they come on board being practicum students. And I mean, Leslie can even attest to it. One of the first things I told her when I became her supervisor is, you need to make time on your schedule for supervision. It is a very big controversial thing that every supervisee I've had knows better than me. I don't know why they all think they can do 16 things at one time. They can be a parent or a wife or a spouse and go full-time work and full-time school and full-time supervision. And I tell them there's 24 hours in a day. I don't know what you're talking about.
And you know, I'm having a little conflict with that.
What happened?
That I'm having a little conflict with that because I want to make the time,
Mm-hmm.
but I have another supervisor that's telling me that I can't do it.
Right. And then you really get into a pickle. So from the onset, I would schedule supervision times. That is a huge piece of advice I tell you. Block off on your schedule, especially mornings tend to be really good for that. Well, way back pre-Rona life. I don't know, during Rona life, don't ask me, things change too much. But pre-Rona life, usually you could have done Monday, you know, I'm gonna block off Tuesday, Thursday mornings for indirect supervision work. That gives you a flexibility within your schedule that later on, as cases evolve, your schedule's gonna change constantly. If it changes as a therapist, God help you as a supervisor. As a supervisor, it changes sometimes like by a minute basis. I was gonna do a schedule and it changed on Friday, and today it changed again, and tomorrow's gonna change again. So you gotta get used to your schedule changing. But I have some sacred times. Like I do this meeting on Sunday nights, and everything and anything comes before this. That's it. I'm gonna do this every Sunday no matter what, unless like I'm out of Wi-Fi area. But I'm gonna do this meeting because it is what it is. So if you do that, you're going to establish a lot. And what I'm trying to do from the onset of someone starting supervision is I'm trying to teach you how to actually time manage. Mm-hmm. And you don't see that in the beginning, but that's what I'm trying to teach you is make sure in order for you to get good indirect quality work, you need to give me a time that you're available. Mm-hmm. Or have a hella flexible schedule, one or the other. And because most people have responsibilities and their schedule is not as flexible, then if you have designated periods, it's going to be easier. Leslie, I feel like, I don't know, I'm going to pray about your situation. You're going to get out of your situation in a very easy way. We'll figure it out. But as time evolves, we're going to be able to also evolve that. Because if it comes to you getting your supervision or servicing a client, then we can balance both needs. And you want to make sure you balance both needs. It could not be during this period, but maybe later on. But if you had a clear, like, nope, these days I don't work because I do this, it would be easier for you. I know as a company require most people to work 3 afternoons. So that's why I always tell them mornings you don't have to work. And usually morning cases are harder to get. Dedicate a morning to giving me indirect work. And then I know how many, and then I tell them, tell me how many hours you have so then I can give you appropriate indirect work. So then that also helps me kind of monitor and see someone's commitment. But those are the 2 pieces of advice that aren't necessarily technically advice by BACB, but I really would advise them to most supervisees. And everybody will give you pushback and say, no, I could do it. You can't. You cannot have a full-time job and do full-time supervision and do full-time school. I still have not met the person who can do it. I have not. Now, if any of you meet them, please let me meet the unicorn. Okay? Because I don't know who they are. Like, I just don't. So that's my biggest piece is that. Like, make sure that that person is really going to get a comprehensive amount of care for that time. Pause. Any questions before we continue on the rest of the chat for the standards?
So, like, just kind of to reiterate what you're saying, like, we are allowed to decline. Like, if we're supervising a case, the supervisee comes up and like, I want you to be in charge of my independent supervision field work. I want you to be my supervisor. And we've decided, like, at that point, like, I don't think that either you have the time, like, we're allowed to make those.
Yeah. You actually should, because like, it's like up to us. Like,
that's actually the ethical thing to do.
Yeah.
Or if you don't feel like, let's say, I think it's totally valid. For example, if you're fresh and upcoming BCBA and you don't feel like you really have dominated what you need to do, and you want to give yourself 3 months before you supervise anybody or do anything, and you say, actually, I'd love to supervise you, it has nothing to do with you. I really want to wet my feet very well in this field for 3 months. Can we have this conversation in 3 months? I think that takes a really brave person to do that and say like, yeah, not yet. Because
Well,
you're not giving the best of you.
Because I mean, I've never supervised anybody, and I feel like my supervision was kind of like, right, like how everybody is like, get your hours done when you get your hours done, and then that's when you like, oh, did you do the hours? Yes, but like, did I really learn anything? Like,
yeah. And see,
I did what they told me to do, but
so then
that's my point. I want to be proficient.
Yeah.
The point is,
if you want to be proficient, I think it's good to say I need 3 to 6 months, but I wouldn't avoid supervising because you're not going to be the perfect BCBA ever. And you can get training along the way. But I had a supervision experience that's worth $1 million that I wouldn't pay 1 penny to do again, right? I feel like I was an exploited slave. That's the best way I could explain it. I did a lot, which made me a really, really proficient, like on-the-go BCBA. And then I just had a crackle to take cases that like, I don't know, I like Rubik's Cubes. I had a mom best describe me, and I love this, and now I tell people all the time. She's like, "Ma'am, you're like Dr. House." That's exactly what it's like, I'm like House with like social skills. Like I like to solve puzzles that people can't solve. Like that's what I would dedicate my life to, is being a diagnostician. Of like, I'd love to just like kind of look at cases and be like, do it this way. This way. Do this resource. Why haven't you used this curriculum? Why have you tried this way? And then if you meet my clientele, you would understand that it's very interesting.
That's how you need to be. Otherwise, you're not going to get anything done.
Well, sort of. Like you have some clients that have more of a traditional path and some that have more of a traditional path. By the time you get to me, you are a very untraditional path sort of person. As history can testify. Like I'm not around the middle like analyst you get on the set. Either something's up in terms of genetically, this person requires a medical team, mom or dad is a little bit more peculiar and require complicated but brilliant support. The child has a very huge plethora of like functions and behaviors. There is a psychopathology that the child has. Like I'm just describing the case I have. International cases that require team coordination. What else do I have? Basically, that's kind of like my bread and butter there. Older clients. I really like older clients. I'm getting very bored from little people. Little people bore me. Not in the beginning. The beginning I had a lot of little people. And I can still do little people really well, but they just bore me at this point. I'd rather have old people. I like them better. It's hard. It's just that's what it is. I like them older. Katie will tell you the opposite. She loves little people. Once they get to like 5 or 6, she's like, I'm bored. So then we switch.
Little people.
No, what?
No, it's just like, but that's true. I feel like you kind of get like a groove, like whether like it's like younger clients or clients that like have like more conversation skills, like, and you kind of like find your niche in it.
Well,
so
you definitely will find
well. Yeah.
Which is why it's good to have a plethora of supervisors. However, I always say, if you're the best of analysts are people who like to be uncomfortable. You need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, which means you should always have a case with someone you're uncomfortable with to enough to tolerate, not enough to drive you crazy. My threshold is probably a little crazier, and I'm like starting to realize my threshold is getting thinner as I age. But I also like to refresh, like I did Katie a favor, for example, and I supervised a little client. I realized how I'm like, I need to sharpen certain skills that and like read up on other things that I use with my clients, but I need a little bit more with little people. So it's good to have like a plethora so you don't niche yourself in a box. Because if all you ever do is work with early learners, you miss a lot of perspective that older learners give you. I mean, I had to have this conversation with this mom. I was like, yeah, you think your tantrum is manageable when your kid's like, the kid's destroying the house. And I'm like, yo, I know what that looks like at 10. You don't know what that looks like at 10. That is a scary person at 10 years old.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you only niche yourself in that field, you won't know what exactly why is it important to work on, for example, behavioral goals much more than communication, I would even tell you. Because I have plenty of kids who talk, but when they have meltdowns, they are scary people.
Yep.
Very, very scary people.
Like it doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's like,
Yeah, like God help you. And then and you'll realize life's a cycle. So as things goes on, it won't happen a lot for a season, and then you hit puberty. And then you're like, got to hang of puberty, and then you hit transition adulthood. And then so that you learn that this is a ride with autism.
Yeah, but if if you don't experience those, like you don't know how. That's
Exactly.
Cool, that's cool.
So I would just say get comfortable with being uncomfortable in general.
But it's okay to say no, like, but to explain, like, oh, right now I'm still in the middle of gaining my proficiency. Like,
you could say
3
like,
months, I'll come back to it.
Exactly. Like if that's going to be your case, or you could say, who's this case? I have a thing that this has been the one season and I'm like waiting for somebody, because since I started as an RBT, someone who I'm close to or in my field, like who I've worked with, has been pregnant. I don't know what's going on. One of y'all is due to get pregnant soon. But let's say we're going to go on maternity leave. I would easily tell the person right now is not a great time. I'm about to have a baby. Like, I can't be their supervisor. Or if you're going to go on maternity leave, hey, Supervisee 1, 2, 3, you need to figure out who's going to help you. Right now, I want to be with me and my baby. Right? So those are conversations you can have and be very frank with the person. And it's much better because you develop a much better respect. When someone tells me like, no, I can do it, then I'm like, okay. And then usually I let them try 2 weeks and they can't. And then they usually figure it out. Most people haven't been that hard-headed.
Okay.
So that one, it's not like I'll say no because you're saying you can do it all. I'll be like, okay, let's try. 3, 2, 1, and it just kind of happens. So that's another kind of thing that I let the issue resolve itself on its own. So let me kind of come back and share screen here with the standards. Okay. So that kind of gives you guys who's supposed to do it. And then I went over the contract, which is down here. There's a nice little piece of paper here, down here, that gives you the pre-experience checklist, which I really like. Because then it kind of tells the supervisee, like, do you even know what you're supposed to be doing? Like, it gives you a really nice checklist. See, Maria, this is what you did, right? You like looked at people's certification number. Nobody does that. So like, that's why I highlight that one really large. When did they complete it? Then they just came out with it.
I was required actually to complete this thing.
Yeah, because they do that really well in the practicums. And I feel like, hello, let's do it too. And then when did you complete your contract? So all of this is pre you starting, which is really great. So then determine what's going to be your kinds and then make sure you're starting classes. So this is a really, really good resource I feel like they have, and I like to give people at the onset. Now
they also like say how many hours on average you planning to like.
Exactly. And then I also make them write down on average how many do you want or you need, and where do you see your potential of like graduation or time period date. I've never met someone who's a supervisee that wants to stay there forever. They're over ambitious in when they want to finish. So they're like, yeah, I want to finish in like a year and a half. You're like, that's not really realistic. Maybe we take a little bit longer. And I always tell them it's better to take 2 years and you be the best, most qualified BCBA coming out of it, because it's not about passing a test. I literally know people who pass that test, and I wouldn't want them to be my child's babysitter, much less like a behavior analyst. So make sure you know what you're doing, because there's a practical part, not just the theoretical part. A lot of things happen in theory, and then when you actually have to do it, very different. So making sure you have that. So then in terms of the supervision, what should it mean? I love how, Maria, you put it. I'm teaching you how to be me. You need to work me out of a job. I want to make you a colleague. So what does that mean? What do I do on an everyday basis? This is just some of the few things. I do BST training. I develop communication skills. I think there kind of is a little bit of a talk of ethics here, but the ethics of being an analyst, and then the people part of being an analyst. Again, some people are really great analysts. I don't want to know them on a personal level, which is okay. That's okay. As long as you can do your job effectively, but understand that this is also a people field. So sometimes your affect is really horrible and you don't realize it. You need to have someone tell you, like, your affect is really horrible. Sometimes I need to tell you, hey, you need to be respectful of someone's period of time. So if a parent is calling you at all hours of the night, how can you kindly like redirect them towards business hours? How can you shape your behavior to shape their behavior? When a parent isn't completing goals at the rate that you want them to, how do you do that? How do you handle that? When you have a supervisee tell you off, how do you handle that without stabbing them in the eye? When you have someone want to quit your case all of a sudden, how do you handle that? So you're learning all of these other things that are part of your job that you don't really realize are part of your job. So that's the nature of what supervision should be, is how do I make you the best me? They're just putting that in a very technical way. How to structure it, right? So this isn't really foretelling really well, I feel like, for people. We don't have group supervision. I think that's going to start to change. This is going to kind of be considered a group supervision in the future. And then I'll have individual meetings with each of you guys every other week. So I have my calendar. So excited that I'll have with you guys to meet over Zoom for an hour every other week. And we'll talk about your career development, where you kind of see some skills lacking, and then whatever homework I left for the week to make sure that you're able to kind of catch that up. So it's just a good like one-on-one time of like, where do you see yourself going? Who could we find you as a match maybe, or as a supervisor to help you develop a mentorship model, la, 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 la. But making sure that if the person attends group supervision, that's only 50% of their individualized supervision time. I'm gonna say this cautiously. Most people don't tend to have supervision issues. They tend to get supervised a ton in our company. That could be the case in another company, or if you're on a private pay case. You need to make sure you supervise your person as much. Okay? So that's something kind of keep in mind. This talks about the contract and kind of what you need to do and obtain. This is where the 7 years, right? That these documents should be obtained for at least 7 years. Where else are we? And that we are allowed, this wasn't before you had to sign individual supervision contracts, even when you're in a big team. They realized that didn't work. So understanding that one, you can sign the one that's multiple supervisors at one organization, and that one person signing it should be the person who gave you the majority of the hours of the month. That's the logical thing. Don't have the third supervisor on the team that gave you 2 hours of supervision sign that paper. They can, but it's illogical because it doesn't really verify well the hours. You're keeping that and the tracking form that the person is sending for the month. Really big thing. You need to make sure you secure a qualified supervisor, right? By checking if they're qualified, and that you actually must attend your first class. So if your class starts September 1st and you're like, I want to sign the contract August 30th, nah, homeboy, you got to sign it September 1st. So that all of that is actually valid. And that's not mine. That's the BACB standard. And this is also different. May not exceed 5 years. I am not sure how they are going to revise this part, because there's been some chatter about whether you suspend your time or not. I think that as of now, you need to complete supervision in those 5 years, no matter what. But let's say if somebody has to take a suspended leave of absence, I think that they may requalify that. That hasn't changed yet. So as of now, you have to finish your contract in 5 years. And then it breaks down here how many types. I'm going to stick to the pre-2022 contract right now. What's going to change is this number, and that it has to be 60%. That's really what's changing. That's big and important. So unrestricted hours need to be 60%, and then it's going to go up now to 2,000 hours if you want to be a BCBA. And then I think correspondingly, it's also going to change for BCABAs. Some people have a rice and mango situation here. Between supervised independent field work and experience intensive hours, it just teaches them how to calculate them. There. God help you. I hope no one's one of those. If they are, just kind of, you have to be a little bit extra cautious in signing their forms and learning how to track their hours, because their hours. What happened?
I just wouldn't do this. Like if you like intensive.
I've only ever met one person in this situation. Because they were doing practicum during the school year, took a summer off, and then did supervision independent work. It was a little bit, but it was hella messy. So I hope you don't get a person like that. It was very difficult to calculate.
I only have 2 weeks maybe of time off, and I don't want to do anything in those 2 weeks. I just want to.
That's what I said, but apparently nobody listens to me. I told you nobody wants to take vacation. I'm like, burnout, buddy, burnout. That's a real thing. All right, it also goes through here, you can't have any less than 20 or at least 130. Am I going too fast? Everybody? Sure? I talk very fast. Fine, only parents are honest with me right now. You guys are not.
Talk fast. You do talk fast.
I talk very quickly, which is why
But
it's,
I'm not used to it, so now it's like now I'm used to it.
I know, but poor Yvette's not used to me, so she doesn't know I go like my train goes 100 miles an hour.
Hence
knows
the
that my husband
recommendation
speaks
for
fast.
recording.
Yeah, you can go back to the recording. Say that again, Eva.
No, I'm saying Diana will attest that my husband is a chatterbox, and he's like,
Yeah.
and I have to listen to all of it. The whole recording for like 30 minutes. So if
Oh,
I didn't
no.
catch it, I'll catch it again later.
Awesome. So just let me know. Just say, slow down. Totally. I don't have feelings. That's like the very famous phrase I say. I don't have feelings. It's okay. Just let me know. I like feedback too.
No.
So let me know.
No. I mean, I like how your speed, because it keeps me like, I'm like, okay, let's go.
All right, perfect. So then there's some months, this happens a lot like during holidays. For sometimes people cut it off like December 1st to December 15th, and then they have 2 weeks off that Maria nicely and magically takes off now because she's a human being. That talks about how to kind of calculate that. This isn't as used as much with the calendar model. So I would say just do the whole month. If the person takes 2 weeks off, it's fine. Just make sure you meet the requirements of at least 20 hours, 2 contacts, 5% of supervision. I don't know why they have to write this, but this is always going to be somebody's something. You cannot supervise your own child. I don't know who tried this, but apparently somebody tried supervising their own child. And this is
Actually, it can be different situation. For example, my aunt, she has kids. For example, if I'm BCBA, so I'm not their mom, but I'm related because I'm the cousin.
Yeah. So I'm glad that they put your child or a primary caregiver. Just that's common sense. Apparently, it's not common. So they needed to put that in there. Whatever. I remember I heard in my sister says this a lot. She's a teacher. She's like, "That's not a flower that grows in everyone's garden." So clearly, they had to put this in here for somebody. All right. This is kind of gives you a nice, neat, succinct idea of what things should be considered within the supervision experience. So conducting assessments, understanding how to evaluate them, designing and skill monitoring. This is why you need to be very attentive where your supervisee is within their paperwork. Leslie, I'm so sorry. I'm going to use you again as an example. Leslie is very interested.
No problem.
Say that again, Maria.
This is the hardest thing for me, because like they make it like a lot of stuff, like you don't really know whether it's considered unrestricted or you can count it. And like board usually say it's up to your supervisor. I was like, well, that's nice. And like nobody really knows. They just give the freedom to supervisor to decide. And it just, for example, let's take a look at the part like clinical notes and like data collection.
Yes.
We do this throughout the session. We took some time, for example, I write my notes throughout the session so I do not forget some stuff. I usually like, obviously I collect data throughout the session, but it's a direct, it's like restricted, like, oh, how can you do this? Like you can count, for example, 2 hours direct, like 1.5 hours direct, 30 minutes indirect. It's like.
This is a rule of thumb I use. You can use it or you can come up with your own thing. I always say, does writing a clinical note teach you how to do my job? It can, but it's not the only thing you need to learn. And then does it, that's rule number 1. 2, I know whether to count it restricted or unrestricted in this way. If I get audited, can I justify what you're describing? And for my clarity's sake, no. So anything done for me in a direct supervision session, I will not sign for. Because it just makes my life too hard to justify if I get audited, period. So if you're saying, oh, the last 15 minutes I write notes. Okay, maybe somebody else can sign that off for you. I don't have a problem. If I get audited, I'm not justifying that because it's like, it depends the auditor you get. And that's just like, and then all those 15 minutes of each individual session is going to add up to, I mean, let's say on average, most people have 6 sessions a week. 15 minutes times 6 is an hour and a half every week of indirect. Multiply that in a month, that's 6 hours. That's 6 hours that you could have been using to learn how to do a behavior plan. Not writing notes. You're not learning anything new. So then I think about that, and then you aggregate that over 12 months, it's 72 hours. 72 hours you spend writing clinical notes. Yes, it's designated under this area, but then I think about, I only have 1,500 hours to train you. Of that, I only really have 750. So 750 hours, if you're counting 10% of that writing notes, does that make sense for you guys? Because that's the way I think about it. I don't think about it about the 15 minutes in your session. I think if I say yes to your 15 minutes, how many 15 minutes am I losing then? And how can you become the best analyst? Now, that's the way I operate. If you want to operate different, that's okay. That's totally doable and allowable on the board. But I just see it like I'm not going to produce the best results I can, and this person's attached to me. I want in the future for me to bump into anybody who I trained and like, oh my God, I know your kid's name. How are you doing? Da da da. Like, how did what I teach you kind of help you in your career? And writing notes ain't it. And trust me, I work very with a fine-tooth comb with people in their notes because it needs to, because you will get audited. At some point in your life, you are going to get audited. It's okay. As long as you have all your ducks in a row, you're always going to have no problem in that. Now, things are only categorized now, and I'm getting very much better about saying direct. Instead of saying direct or indirect, I'm saying restricted or not restricted. Oh, sorry, before this example. So you see how all these things are listed. Leslie said yes for me to using her as an example, but you need to work in coordination with your supervisee to know where in their coursework they are in order to know what work to assign them. What do I mean? The data program, for example, most people when they're doing their ABA coursework, they do data around maybe halfway. So they learn like how to read a graph, what's a level, a trend, da, 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 da. If you haven't taken that class, what good is it if I teach you Catalyst? You don't know how to read a graph. So why would you assign me work to read a graph if you don't even know how to read a graph? And that's not the part that is it's not my job to really teach you how to read a graph. It is, but it isn't. You know what I mean? I shouldn't have to teach you the ABCs of reading a graph. I need to teach you with those ABCs and that knowledge. When you read a graph, how can you mess with this graph, understand it? How does that inform programming? Then that's my job to teach. So you want to give people only the work that they're really competent to do. So then I'm going to outline for you guys towards the end when everybody takes a pee-pee break, what that looks like. So activities are categorized now as restricted or unrestricted. So unrestricted is that portion of what makes you an analyst. Restricted would be direct therapy. That's going to change in 2022. But you can count certain things as unrestricted and others as restricted, and then supervision can count under either, FYI. This seems a little bit clearer to me. What is an unacceptable activity? Kind of attending conferences, didactic coursework. I've had people say, oh, my homework is in direct hours. No, it's not, buddy. No, it's not. That's according to this. Like, you can't do that. Admin. This is actually the most common one that people do incorrectly. And I have seen this happen a lot to people. They're like, oh, I'm helping somebody with their billing thing. That is not indirect work.
Materials, it's like the most confusing for me because like I personally think that making materials is like, it's not behavioral analytic work, because like if you take a look on behaviors, it's cutting, gluing, it doesn't make you BCBA, but right. Like I know a lot of like supervisees just counted it like towards experience as unrestricted activities, just making materials. And
I would tell you, man, I haven't had people make me material. Jesus, my life would be so much easier because I hate like making visuals. That's like my big pet peeve of being an analyst, is doing insurance paperwork and making visuals. I would say a dash here and there to make materials is fine. You know what I mean? Because that is part of what you're going to do as an analyst. You have to learn, like I need to show you how to use, for example, BoardMaker. BoardMaker is a very used process to make packs. Now we use another one called Little Learner or Little Kitchen, I don't know, Little Lesson X, no, Lesson Pick or whatever. I can teach you how to make a material and you can practice it so you get enough experience knowing how to use visuals. But more than that, I would say no need to. So use things at your discretion of like, okay, if this person doesn't need to spend 100 hours making materials, that's not really going to enhance your ability to be a behavior But just kind of use it as your discretion. But I would say I agree with you, Maria, to the lower extent, not to the really the higher. And then lastly, this is just how you document it. They've made this nice and easy now because no one used to have to document it outside of paper. And each people had their own forms or whatever, how they would sign it at a week. I'll bring out my old supervision forms so you guys can get a nice giggle. Let me see where they're at. Give me a second.
It's like 2 weeks form.
Let me show you what the old papers look like.
Like-
this one does, yeah, it was a 2-week form, but it was individual per company. So only thing you actually had to do is, and I developed the Excel program for my company because all I basically did during graduate school was do a whole mess of Excel. But before, it looked like really crazy looking. It was just this actually. This was a final verification form. You had to have, I have the copy.
Yeah, I had it.
Yeah, that one. And that's all you had to send. And you didn't technically have to annotate anything else. So now it's beautiful because it's nice and uniform. No matter where you work, wherever you are, you have to use the monthly verification form and the final and then they have that tracking sheet on, oh, whoops, my computer went a little crazy.
And they accept electronic
And the
signatures now.
Correct, the tracking sheet on Excel. So everyone has to use the same forms. I'm not gonna go through them right now because I think they're pretty self-explanatory. So it's fine. I haven't read this one. This is a new one I haven't done. So I'll check it out for you guys and I'll see what it says. Here's audits. And what will happen. You are liable to get audited for yourself or for a supervisee within 7 years. And then there's a process to doing it. The more supervisees you have, the more likely you are to get audited per the board. I learned that at a conference. So the more you take on, unless that's your full-time job, as like with the company, the more likely you are to get audited. So be very, very intentional about keeping people's forms because either you or the person will have to get the forms. And guess what? People move, their computers break, all these craps happen. So buy an iCloud or I don't know what people used to use, little hard drives or whatever, but have your forms because you will and may get audited. And you have 7 business days to explain things. So make sure you're up to date where you keep things. Mm-hmm.
I have a question about audit because like I was confused about this. So they can request the audit if you apply for BCBA or if you, so once you BCBA, you're safe for yourself. Or like,
Nope.
Like you are working, I don't know, like it's been 5 years, you BCBA and now they can request your audit.
You got it.
Wow, that's cool.
So you need to keep up. Why do you think I still have my form? Because I'm on year 6. I can't wait to burn my like I mean, I'm like, ding, 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 ding. I want to be in year 7. And then like, I hate paper. I have like a very like minimalistic lifestyle. So I want to burn my forms too, but I have to keep them in the originals until 7 years. So until 7 years, I've been an analyst, I can get audited for my own. Now moving forward, I can only get audited for you guys. So, but I need to keep all of that. So that's a really big thing that I want to make sure I do.
But like in my case, you're not responsible for me. The only person who's responsible for me is my FIT supervisor who is signing all the monthly forms.
Nope, I can get audited for your forms too. Ay, bendito sea el Señor. Patience. You see what I mean? Talking to parents and not text you at a time. So sorry, friends. I have to attend to this because we've decided to change schedules 65 times during the last 24 hours. Okay, perfect. Now, what does this really mean in real life? So, this is where the going gets good. Oh, I think Yvette's daughter came in the room, but she didn't believe us.
I'm just taking off my sweater, but I didn't want everybody to see me, like my belly button.
No worries. We have a good giggle at this sometimes too. No stress. That's what you need to do sometimes when you talk to people. Take a deep breath. No, it can come one day, not 2 days. That's it. All right. So I want to give everybody just a quick break. Take 2 or 3 minutes, go to the bathroom, do whatever, because then I'm going to spend the other time really outlining for you what does kind of how a rough sketch or outline of what you should make supervision look like for somebody. Okay? All right, guys, I'll see you in a little bit. I'm going to pause the recording. On now. Awesome. So I want to, as a team, brainstorm what you guys think and orient you guys. What do you think you should know by when? So, Leslie, for your sake, just since you're going to be an analyst, sending those vibes your way. We're going to, I don't like this font. It has nothing to do with why I don't know how to change the setting to like for it to always come out as Arial. It's a weird OCD thing. The longer you're with people with ASD, the more you become like them. You won't realize that. I have really learned that over my life. Okay, supervision. And curriculum. Between the first 100 hours, what do you think a supervisee should know? This is my OCD.
What supervisee should know?
Yep.
I believe they have to like to figure out how to collect data.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, because like some of them don't know like how to count like for if it's like frequencies they're good. If it's something like duration or like percentage, they're like whoa, like you know.
Okay. So how to collect data on a program? That's fair.
Yeah.
So
like the format of notes.
Here, let me do this. Supervisee curriculum. Say that again. How to correct?
How to write like the proper format of notes.
Okay.
Maybe how to interpret data, or like it's not maybe the first one. Like how to read graphs, like how to figure out, because like that's usually what that's ongoing thing. So if you see
Guys, the first 100 hours to make people interpret graphs.
Well, that's what I had asked Pam, and Pam said, not yet.
How can you interpret graphs? You don't have the ABCs of graphs yet.
How about how to look at scenarios to determine like the function?
Yeah, function of behavior, I believe.
Ah, okay. I think kind of. This is a weak skill you need to work all the time. But I would say have a good understanding of functions. Let's put it that way, right?
I'd say also capturing opportunities for learning. I think sometimes
that's a great one.
Starting off, I think that because there's so many things going on, you know, you're kind of like you're new as a therapist. Sometimes I think you don't realize how you can be working on skills in moments, and you have to open your eyes to see those opportunities.
I love that. That's great.
And not be so confined, let's say, to the table, or like with such a schedule, be so restricted, like restrict yourself to be that schedule all the time.
So how about this? You should learn the difference between these two things.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
What about the principles of behavior, reinforcement, extinction, punishment?
Great. Have you guys thought about this?
Yeah.
I would actually say this is number one.
And maybe even work on, like, if that particular client has a behavior intervention plan, how to handle, like, how to work through these behaviors.
You're not quite there yet. Because you haven't really had a good, nope. That coursework comes a little bit later on.
Later on.
Probably, if it's like for RBT, oh no.
Well, I think this is the beauty of our field. This is how it used to work, us and hoteliers. So I went to a school that's like, had a huge hotel administration program for grad school. So, and I also worked at a hotel when I was younger. almost all, and then people who would study that, we'd call them hoteliers. So hoteliers and ABA people, we're one of the few fields that you have to do every job before you get to do the top job. So anybody who's a hotelier has had to be like a housekeeper, the attendant at the front, like you've had to have every job before you get to be a manager. People who do ABA, you need to become a really competent RBT. So I would say, if I don't have a competent RBT, I'm not gonna have a competent BCBA. What are the skills that you need to be a competent RBT? Professional ethical skills.
How to follow behavior plan.
Bingo, there you go. Follow a behavior plan.
Like behavior plan and acquisition.
And a school acquisition. Yep.
Rapport building.
Say it again.
Rapport building, like pairing.
Okay. Yep.
You also mentioned like sometimes you have to teach them how to play. Like maybe they don't know how to properly play.
I was thinking about
functional play.
Like simple pairing and preference assessment. That's what like we do on a regular basis, like as RBTs.
Oh, I meant rapport building.
Oh, rapport building. Sorry.
It's RAPPORT.
Thank you so much. I do this incorrectly all the time. Like I have certain things I spell incorrectly no matter how many times. Okay.
It looks weird. It like doesn't look like what you're thinking of.
Like fiance. I also spell it incorrectly all the time. Preference assessment. Play skills. I'm teach this in 100 hours, by the way. Please explain this to me how you're going to do this in 100 hours. So maybe I should change this to 250, right? Because that's a lot to learn in 100 hours.
Prompting procedure, like how to do the, oh my God, the error correction procedure. It's like also,
I know. That goes into the modalities. That might be a little bit further on. I'll probably tell you want to do that the 250 to 500 hours.
Or like shaping procedure or like discrimination training.
That comes later on in curriculum. All that comes a little later in curriculum. Your first curriculum, man, I wish I had all that paperwork. I threw it all out. No, man, who's gonna have all that crap from like all? I used to print all the stuff from FIT. I basically guided myself. The way that I would develop a supervision curriculum is according to each class. What can I help to build on with the task list? So you guys want a supervision model also according to the task list. And the classes do it really beautifully, but then I want to fill in what the classes don't. So something else that you start to learn on that never gets discussed in your classes, but you need to learn fairly quickly is where are we writing plans from? What does that mean? The person should know what enables a BB map. Oh, what did I just do? So sorry, friends. BB map,
our tools,
and AFOs, etc. The tools, right? And how this is a time they need to take to read the tools. So one of the first things I'll teach people is how to read the tools. Because you can't even do the rest of this effectively if you haven't read the tools.
Also, I would say maybe MO versus SD, like discriminative stimulus.
That comes later on. I tell you that you have good stuff for 250, so let me do that right now. Let me write that.
I just opened my first class, FIT class. So that's what
You're in a practicum, girl. We're doing supervision here. The whole school. We'll make this 250 to 500. Then we'll do 500 to 1,000.
I would say like where to draw the line and tell the parent, okay, you need to speak with the BCBA.
Like so.
So maybe, what are the roles?
For example, with MR's mom, she canceled session for Friday because family was coming out of town, and she asked if I can instead supervise MR playing with his cousin. And I said, I can't do that. That's not part of my duties. You have to speak with my supervisor about that, and if she has the time, can do that. But
it's part of like ethical code. It's like what's the name? for this, like, what's your, like, not the boundaries, like, what's the name? What's your, I forgot the right word.
Yeah, the scope of your training.
Yeah. That's what you, as RBT, what you're responsible for. And I think as for RBT second task edition, and if you have a Bailey ethics book, it says like RBT, that's what you need to know, like as RBT, and then the rest is go to BCBA. And you also, if you feel like it's under your competence, you just like, I'm not, like, let me consult with my BCBA, stuff like this.
I agree.
But there is no written like thing. It's like just you play it by ear. Like there is no, they just say like there is a code and that's it. And like you have to apply it yourself in the real life. That's like hardest thing.
Yeah. You know, something I want to kind of point out too. This goes with what Jess said here. Capture opportunities for learning. Really big one. How? And building rapport as the supervisor.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's a really difficult problem people have. So actually, let me put when too, because now I've had incidences where people call me in the middle of a dinner with my in-laws, and I'm like, nah, boy, it's 9 o'clock at night. I don't know. Unless you have COVID, don't call me at 9 o'clock at night. I don't want to know about you till 7 o'clock in the morning. And I feel bad. I had to once get Maria up at like 11 o'clock at night because I was stuck in an international situation, but that was an emergency. So unless it's an emergency like that, don't call me.
I was patiently waiting and was like, oh, should I do this? Should I not? Let's write an email. Because
You're always welcome to write an email, but when, how, and who to ask for help, right? Because there are things that, not even unintentionally, like I've had therapists just want to like vent about things. And I say, that's a really good, healthy thing. I just think you probably want to find a colleague to do that. Doesn't look great when you do it to your boss. And sometimes they have there's an indiscrepancy, especially one, if you're a woman. Two, I started off being a supervisor very young. And I've had to supervise people who are double my age. This never happens with people who are double your age. I've had a really fabulous experience with people who are like older. But when you're close in age, sometimes people think that in a way, and hopefully you develop a good, call it respectful relationship, but they think sometimes I'm your friend. I'm not your friend. I'm your supervisor. So there are things you should not be telling me. And I realize you probably don't know that. So I want to tell you, do not tell me that. That's not something I need to know. Right? Like, I try to schedule, for example, a mental health day every 3 or 4 months. It's something I found that has built in part with my vacations, kind of I self-manage, something that helps me endure. And I'm getting right to the point where I haven't had a mental health day for 6 months. Like, I don't need to tell you what I'm doing on my day off. I'm just having a mental health day. Or I'm just not working this day. That's all you need to know. And maybe you need that as a therapist. I don't know. Maybe you do. And that's okay. As long as you do it with foresight and, not interfering with your client's work or whatever. But I think about that, right? Like, those are things you don't necessarily, what to communicate, who to communicate to, and when, right? So I think all of that should be, that's a good chunk of stuff. You see how you guys do know more than sometimes you think of what to put in, right? So this is what I want to start with, because this is where most people have difficulties. Now, it's the time in the middle, right? So since people have most difficulty in the time in the middle, tell me what you think you should be doing between 1,000 and 1,500 hours.
Writing the plans, like learning how to write your plans.
Are you learning how to write the plans, or should you independently? Now is where I want you guys to be more specific.
Independently practice.
Writing it. Say that again?
Independently and getting the feedback.
Writing what kind of plans?
Treatment plans, behavior plans.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. What else should you have done?
Reassessment.
Correct. You should independently or with help?
Independently.
And this is independently in quotes because you're not supposed to be doing this work independently. But I mean that you are let me put it this way, independently writing treatment plans and providing feedback.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me make sure I put that under everything I'm saying right now. Because it's not, no, and you know why I'm gonna put it? Because I had to do it, right? I actually ended up independently writing a ton of treatment plans before I was supposed to. So I wanna make sure you understand that this is for supervision and for feedback. So independently conducting assessments or reassessments. Okay. What else, guys? Should you independently?
RBT supervision, independent as well as parent training.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yo hice. Oh my word. Sorry, my hand's kind of messed up. I had a very fun accident on Monday, so I'm writing a little slower than I used to. Okay. What else?
How about reinforcer like assessments? Like
Mm-hmm.
How to write, to add, oh my God, revise, to
Okay.
add some goals and stuff.
Okay.
catalyst work. Well, you know, be able to.
I'm just gonna say, yeah, programming.
Yeah, programming. Yeah, that's the word.
Okay.
Yeah, but true.
And I will push all of you people to do this because this is the one part no one likes me as a supervisor. Even if it's me. Wait, let me put this. Independently and justifiably. Somebody would like say no for craps and giggles, so no, that's not it. Okay, so knowing when you need help, right? So I would say the other big thing that most people don't have right?
Yeah.
Those are things that are not on the task list you need to learn, especially the uncomfortable calls, right? I remember I used to have a therapist that canceled all the time. No, when I was a therapist, there was a therapist who canceled all the time. And I am invaluably grateful for this experience. She would make me call the parent, who was a super nice parent, but was irritated that this girl kept canceling, and learn how to take responsibility for someone else's mistake. For someone else's mistake, and learn to hear complaints. Right? So at the end of the day, who does the buck fall with when a therapist is out, when programming goes wrong, when treatment plan goes?
You.
Yes. And so whether you like it or not, you need to learn to own it. Because I promise you, anything under the sun can happen as long as you learn to own it and then how you're going to fix it, you're going to be a really excellent supervisor that way. Right? Even the company can fail sometimes. There's things that I've had to account for the company that aren't even my freaking fault. I've had to account for coronavirus, for God's sakes. I have a responsibility for coronavirus, which is beyond my understanding. I'm like, why?
I would say, Pam, also like time management, scheduling.
Oh, really good. Great. I want to make sure that for me is important. That's on my list, right? I want to make a good Before everything, I always tell people, be a good person before you're a good analyst, right? Don't do unto others as you don't want done unto you. That's part of like my faith and my calling and what I feel like is good, but whatever. You may not be religious, but that's important to me. Be a good human being.
Yeah.
Right. Big one. Average rate of burnout in BCBAs is 5 years. FYI. And it's not a money thing because we make pretty good money. But this field is very taxing. So learn to laugh, learn to enjoy life, learn to take and give a joke. There's very good ways you guys can get out of things. I'll give you a perfect example. Maria kind of knows halfway the conversation that happened and not. One of Maria's clients that thinks she walks on water, primarily because she's Russian and amazing. I still don't get that connection in my brain, but whatever. Decided to give her an unsolicited gift. To this family, that's their culture. That's the way that they express affection. They're very good at maintaining good client relations over a long time. And that's part of like, they feel like Maria has done the best thing in the world for their child. That she got him to sit down, and this kiddo is probably on the top 5 list of the hardest kiddos I've ever worked with. In terms of his behavior, his stereotypy, he's just not a run-of-the-mill client. He's a 1 in a million sort of case in terms of his compliance and the ever-evolving nature of his stereotypy and his behaviors. So this family adores Maria. They get her a cute little present for her, and they really want her to take it. Maria is like peeing in her pants, conflicted, and is like, oh my God, man, I can't stop this. Like, this is going on the task list. And I'm like, relax, don't worry about it. So I was like, just saying. So then she tells the family, wait for Pam to get there. And so his family and I have had an extensive relationship for a while. So I go to the mom and I'm like, how many times did I tell you not to follow directions? And she's like, I Pam, but this isn't like really like a gift. You know, it's not really like, it's just a pajama. Like, don't you see? Like, oh my God, is she gonna be a bad person for a pajama? And I'm like, hi, but her husband may not like that pajama. And you know, we have to make him happy or else she doesn't stay here. She started bursting out laughing. And then she learned to understand, like, and in that joke, right, it could have been really dry and it could have said, we are not ethically able to take any present. And I could have just gone into the spiel. But by making it lighthearted, they didn't take it offensively. And you have to understand that when you work with people over a long period of time, and you do what almost no one will do for their child, they have everything in their life as indebted gratitude to you. They'd give you a left kidney if they could. So sometimes I feel like the task list is also so restrictive that it doesn't see beyond, and this is a contradiction, right? It says not to culturally offend people, but not to accept gifts. So what I try to do is kind of outline a parameter for parents of what it is. And then after I said that, and she took it lightheartedly, and I'm like, "Hi, girl, go return. Everything's returnable. We're in coronavirus. Don't matter, whatever." And I tell her, you know, Maria hasn't developed that yet. Hold on. So then I told her what are the parameters of giving Maria a present. I was like, it could be a handmade thing that your kid makes, a little weird blue doll thing that costs no one money, just or whatever, some art painting, or food. Maria will eat food, and every food is humanly possible. So it's all good.
Now she offers me food every single session. Like,
no, she offers food every session. So, and then eventually, I think Maria's going to intermittently reinforce that. But that's my point. If you learn to take things lightheartedly, they also know that the journey, like you understand what they need to say, that they're grateful. And I understand people during Christmas, I want to give presents too. So I like, during every Mother's Day and Father's Day, I actually write most of my families a letter. And I tell them how thankful I am for how they've parented and how, although no one else sees it, I see how they parent and how much they give for their children. And that means to them everything, everything, because most people don't see what these people have to go through. And I got a Mother's Day gift from a client and I almost cried, like I cried to death because I'm not a parent. So for someone to say that to me and to give me something, and it was a shenanigan. It was some weird handmade scarf that like, I don't want to wear anywhere, but it's not the point. But it was the fact that they took the time and they gave it to me on a day that I could never think that I was going to get a gift. It wasn't my birthday. It wasn't Christmas. It was Mother's Day. So those are things that like hang on to you. And then that becomes part of your legacy in your life. And so I think that that's really great. I will show you the very cool things. Like, had a client, there was a client I had when I went up to Uganda to help open up a clinic, and then her brother painted a portrait of us from a picture captured. So it's like super cool. Like, it's a really unique sort of thing I have. Then I have bracelets that adult clients of mine have made. I have, oh Lord, let me show you this. This is the most unique, funky thing I have. Boogie decided to make me some weird face chaka cuckoo paintings, whatever. I have them. I don't care. So learn to be a person, right? That comes through that. So I feel like I just want to inculcate that in you guys. Learn to laugh, or else you're not going to last long doing this. And share what you feel comfortable with sharing. And I would say the last one I would say for here is know the kind of BCBA you want to be. Right? You can be an effective, caring, compassionate BCBA. You can hold your personal life a little closer to the vest. That's totally fine. You can be more open. That's totally fine. That's up to you. But just know what you want to do so you know what to emulate. That's what I feel like you should know how to do from top to bottom. Actually.
I guess I know what you're trying to say.
Hold on, no, there's one more I was saying. How to negotiate and how to, I keep wanting to say the word socialize. It's not socialize. When you go to conferences and you learn everybody, if someone give me the word, you meet colleagues, you network.
No.
Yeah, learn how to network, right? What do I mean by know how to be an employee? I'll tell you this, because this is something a lot of bosses have told me, and Maria and I are very congruent in. I have parents all the time when they're upset with a bill or this or that. Not these parents, I've had them for too long. I know them too well, most of them. But they will complain about the company, an employee, or my boss. Anybody who talks trash about their boss in their own company, promise you those chickens will come home to roost. You may not get fired, but those chickens will come home to roost. Because I don't want people working for me that complain about me to other people. If you have a grievance with me, just come and tell me, right? And so I just stay sometimes quiet, and I'm like, okay, whatever. If it's something I have to own to, like a billing error, I'm like, so sorry. Sometimes we make mistakes. Okay, I'll talk to Larry. Let me see how I can facilitate that getting fixed. Because sometimes it is an error on our end. But you're not going to come to me and talk caca about my boss. My boss can have no underwear. The emperor can have no clothes on. But it's kind of like when I was teaching my husband about Latin families. Latin families, this is like our thing. We can kill each other, tell each other all kinds of crap, but don't come from the outside and talk to us about our own family. Then you're dead. That's it. That's the one uncrucifiable sin you can't commit to Latin people. We have crazy people in our family. We have people who are selfish, thieves, have 2 eyes missing. Doesn't matter. We know that. But you don't need to come from the outside and tell us about our family. We find that very personally, like, I feel like companies work like that. If you are at a point where you're such a disagreement with your employer, you need to leave. But don't talk ill about your employer, because this company, and not only this company, all the companies in ABA, this is a small world. And how does that reflect of you? And I promise you, when someone rings the phone and talks, they're going to talk that. And then learn to network, because an opportunity may be available with someone in another place, or if you may want to find a company one day or whatever, that's going to be of help to you. That's going to help you build a skill team, a colleague team that can help you. You should have BCBAs that you know at different companies. You should have older BCBAs, younger BCBAs, people who work with this, people who work with that. Just network. You don't know who you're going to find and what you're going to know. People who can teach you about essentials for living, people with all these things. But yeah, and then I would want to say last thing, independently and fluently teach BCBA you're going to have to use ABA language in a very sophisticated manner if you're at a conference, and also understand how to break it down for someone who may be illiterate. I have literally had everything in between. I've had people who are illiterate that I've had to explain this to, 5-year-olds, 10-year-olds, all the way up to like BCBADs. You need to be very happy and fluent going up and down in that technical language and know who to speak what to. Because if you don't know how to do that, you're not really ready to do this job. You should be able to teach me the principles of ABA, which are extinction, punishment, and reinforcement, to a 5-year-old or to a PhD. If you can't do that, you haven't practiced enough doing this job. So be very fluent in that. What's another one? Independently fluent in supervision standards. In your ethical, in the task list, ethical standards, and BCBA supervision standards. And you should know to read the monthly note. They don't send it monthly. I think it's quarterly. Newsletter. Okay? That's what you should know when you graduate. For you 3 that are already analysts, on your own time, during our individual, highlight what you don't know so that I can help you get there quicker. Okay? Because if I was starting from scratch, that's where I would make sure you would know how to do. I wouldn't sign your paper until you knew how to do all that. I will not sign people's paper until they can do all that. Now, I don't care if we're at 1400. If you don't know how to properly conduct a supervision training, you're not going to sign my name. I'm not signing my name to you, period. Because you're not going to go around there in the world and say that I trained you, because I did not train you to do that. So just highlight what you don't know so we can help fortify their skills and kind of find you opportunities on how to do that. All right, so let's fill this in because I think you guys have an understanding. So now that you know where you need to be, tell me how to get there.
We can do almost everything, but with prompts.
Okay, I want to get it done quickly. Yes, that's true. So then how about run assessments? Right here, I would be okay with running assessments with assistance.
Levels, I think prompt levels.
Right? Here. I'll be really good. Is that good, Maria?
Yes.
I would say, I think in conducting an FBA, okay, networking. You already should professionally be networking at this point. Leslie, you and I were talking about reading, analyzing, and providing recommendations based on data.
Yes, that's what I want to say.
Like, do that
yeah, evaluate behavior, like evaluate data to find out like the efficiency of the programs.
Yeah, something I've noticed that has evolved over time, which I find very hilarious, is I have an RBT constantly, and it happens to me at PBS more than anything. And I think it's because we built a very team approach. But it's something I feel like is a form of arrogance. I have RBTs all the time tell me why I should be adding these programs when they have no clue on what skills should come before what program should come before when. Mm-hmm. And then a couple times, like I want to hear their suggestions. I think that's very important, but how you frame suggestions is very, very important to me. And I want to make sure that they know, don't run before you can walk, boo-boo, because I've been down the road a little further than you, and maybe I've looked at that a little 3, 4, 5, 6,000 times more. So it's not like, oh, this kid knows how to do this, let's add this. Well, why? Why is that important? Why is that more important than a behavior program? Or maybe, hey, we're coordinating with the speech pathologist and we can't do that. Another one you should do here already. Coordination of care.
Mm-hmm.
Work across fields.
Yeah.
That's actually what I like about some skills because of parents like, oh, let's add this, let's eat that. I was like, okay, listen, your kid is over there. You asking about this. Let's just like try to like we slowly getting it. It's important, but not right now.
Yeah.
If you're asking your kid to read, how to read, he doesn't know how to read and he pees his pants. Well, we better figure out some more important stuff before he starts to read.
And I would say by the time you're between 500 and 1,000 hours, you would have enough training to know what is the curriculum, you know, that we're working on. Why is this an important skill? Why is it not an important skill? I feel like you can come toe to toe to me and make me a real clinical recommendation. And sometimes I'm going to shoot you down and it's okay because you don't know any better. And sometimes I'm going to be like, you know what? That's a really great idea. We should have that. But I also want you to be brave enough to learn to speak up and learn to make an informed decision and bring yourself to the table. But you need skills before you do that, right? That's why everybody knows everything in college before they graduate, before they've lived life. Everyone can theoretically fix the world. I'm like, oh yeah, you don't know anything yet. You haven't even read a book. Like, read a book before you come have an opinion. So that's really important.
How about somewhere there, like knowing how many hours, like knowing how many like when you're in the process of like the authorization, like the initial assessments, would that fall somewhere, like knowing how many hours to ask for?
Okay. Yeah, I would, that'd be good. Okay, so then I would say understanding research for recommendation of hours and coordination of care. We're an evidence-based field. We make recommendations based on treatment, right? And coordination of care. So if a child is receiving more PT right now because they need physical development skills, you probably can't do half of what ABA has. We could modify it, but literally if a kid can't walk, like you're gonna have to make a lot of adjustments of skills because there's a lot of things that require certain things before other skills. But generally, we're one of the first therapies people work on. The only other therapy I would say is more important than us is PT. Because I've seen very good qualified speech pathologists say, I'm not working with you until you go to ABA. Because if you can't sit and learn at a table or sit and like not have a meltdown, I don't know what you're doing going to speech. Because you're just paying somebody there to melt down your child. Because speech is a very uncomfortable pushing with people who don't communicate. Your kid is going to cry and have a meltdown. And so if you're in speech first, generally doesn't work. And a lot of people get deterred by speech because of that. Because your kid is constantly having a meltdown. They're like, this lady makes my kid cry. Well, duh, they're trying to make them talk. Like, that makes sense to me. I don't know. I'm just saying. Look at it. It makes sense to me.
How about understanding or knowing how to find like interventions depending on the that you have?
Empirical articles.
And identifying appropriate interventions.
Yeah. Which is like where I'm at.
Anyone else have anything what you would want for the 200 to 500 range here? What do you think?
Well, because I know that we don't necessarily do it as much as we should, I think, but like making inferences from like empirical articles, because like, yeah, we don't read a lot of articles, but sometimes like they word it, right? Like you'll read an article and they're like, oh, it's really effective. But like you're looking at the numbers and you're like, well, that's not as effective, right? Like they kind of phrase it in a tricky way. So you have to distinguish what they're saying in the words with the data that they're presenting. Like I've noticed that in some articles where they'll be like, oh, it's like really effective. I'm like, yeah, effective from like 2 to 4. Like that doesn't seem like yes, it increased, but I wouldn't say like that's an effective intervention for whatever that was.
And also understanding if it's a single subject, what does that mean in terms of like, it's not like the whole standard randomized control trial, right? That's not the same effectiveness as a single subject. Also understanding the ethics behind the intervention, right? So I would say for here, you need to have learn how to do a cost benefit ratio with a lot of things, right? In therapy, school, etc. So should my kid go to school? That's a question you get all the time. Well, what are the costs and benefits? Should your kid do, and then you should really run scenarios like that. Should my kid do this? Should my kid do that? Should we pick this intervention over this one? Well, did you kind of go through all the reinforcement ones before you picked a punishment procedure? So I would say the ethics of punishment, extinction, Should be really proficient by this time. Right? And understanding that things that you don't think are a punishment are a punishment. Right? Time out to punishment.
How about being knowledgeable with community resources?
Oh,
for this?
friend, that's an ever-evolving skill here, down here. You know who makes you technical, really good at that? Networking. Working across fields, learning from parents, learning. I have learned lots of things from lots of interesting people. Not just clinicians, not just other analysts, but I've learned a lot of things from parents. A lot. Like, I had a therapist who, funny enough, I gave her the idea because she was so knowledgeable in resources to start a consulting firm. But she became so knowledgeable because she has a child with special needs. But I mean, like, avid, could read it, write it. I mean, super good. And so now she has a little business of like helping consult families, like get through the navigation system. So now I'm like so excited that I can like send her to people, but she did that on her own. So that's super cool. So have humility, right? Learn to be quiet. Sometimes you don't learn everything. I'm learning so much from you guys, so that's really good. So I think that here, if we look back up here, maybe you see how we had like a good understanding of functions, identifying functions, I would put here already. I would say you learn a lot by providing feedback. That should be in the early beginning. Know how to provide and accept feedback. I do not want to work for 1,500 hours with someone who doesn't know how to accept feedback or who knows how to give it, right? You don't need to be mean when you give feedback. You also don't need to be in denial or make an excuse. Like when you make a mistake, just own it, it's okay. Or if you don't do anything perfect, I can't have you have a breakdown every time I'm just trying to help you learn. Like, that's been more my case. That like, I had like people crying, like, why are you crying? Like, oh, I wanted to. I'm like, nobody's gonna walk perfect the first time. If you don't give yourself room to make mistakes, you're not gonna be able to do this. So that would be a really big, nice, good thing to do here. Here's where I would understand error correction, fluency and error correction. Oh yeah, error correction, errorless teaching, and types of learning models. Make sense, Maria? Why it would be here and not up there? Because you were the one who gave this one. Because you need to get all that, and then your foundation skills are already set by like the functions or whatever, and then you're going to learn about teaching styles. And which style applies to what client? And the other thing I would say, at the 250, 500 mark, I would say have an idea how to make a and what factors contribute to programming. I would learn to say this one. So I would say you can learn to program and then you become efficient at it over here. You should be super efficient by 1,000 hours how to program. But I would say you would have at least the understanding of graphs, how to read them and all that. And then what I mean by analyzing and making recommendations, it's not programming, it's as a totality. Could you tell me if the program you have for a child in totality, is it working or is it not? Do you know if you have to increase or decrease? Do you know the kind of learner you have? Oh, this is a really good one here. We'll end it like that for the night. Diana, you're first on my little bubble here. What's ABA? I don't know anything. I'm a random stranger you met on the street. What's ABA? What do you do?
And I get that question.
Mm-hmm.
What is ABA?
What is ABA?
It's a lot.
And don't bore me and do it in 30 seconds because that's all you got.
Oh God.
Oh,
man.
you were gonna get a different question. Don't you worry. So Diana, you're not the first one. You're just gonna get this one.
Oof.
Come on, you can start with just like what's AB standing for.
You got
What?
it.
What is like ABA? It's what? Like what's
What
like
is ABA? The applied behavior analysis, which is like the generic. But I mean, because like when I'm trying to explain it to like an incoming RBT, I'm like, okay, I want to know how they understand things first before I go into a full out explanation of it.
Really, really good strategy. But you may need to be with an RBT. You always want to listen. I always feel like we should listen twice and speak once. With a parent who just had their child recently diagnosed, you're coming in there. You know what the hell you do? They have an idea because they've Googled it. And you know what? They've seen torture videos of 1962 of people sitting a kid at the table and say, do this, do this, do this.
Yeah.
And that's what they think ABA is. So
Yeah.
I want you to tell me, what is
For a
it?
parent? Or
No.
for like just anybody?
I'll give you a minute to think about that. Don't worry.
Okay.
I'll start my own first. Don't worry. I'll give you guys a second.
Just like
what do you do? Just what do you do? What's a BCBA? What is it? What is your job?
that's a question for who? For me? I can answer all of them. Like
Yeah, go last. Jessica, what's a BCBA?
Wait, she's
Oh, you're on mute.
mute yourself.
that's very cool strategy. Like I muted, like I tell.
Yeah. So basically, so a BCBA is an analyst that is going to go and look at scenarios of clients that are going to be able to learn how to program and incorporate family life, multiple components of that child's daily routines.
Come back. What do you do for a living?
Oh, what do? I basically work with kids, reducing behaviors and teaching skill acquisitions.
There you go. That's all you had to say. Now make sure that's it.
Like socially significant behaviors that enhance their quality of life.
Too much words. It's too many words. I understand. It's a lot of words. I just want to know what you do. I'm some random person around South Beach. I just want to know what you do.
Okay. They've asked me that, and they're like, okay.
Yeah, I practice. You could say I practice something called ABA. It's a type of psychology, and I work on reducing behaviors people don't want to see and improving stuff that they should learn and know. Fluent. You have to get very, very fluent at that because people are going to ask you back and forth, and then Theo blah 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 comes from I don't know where, or Grandma Jane comes over there. She's like, "Who the heck are you? Are you a lawyer? Are you a psychologist? Are you a shrink? Are you a this?" Be able to very fluently explain that. There's a teacher, they're like a behavior, who? What? And I get called a behaviorist all the time. It's like the old word like that people used to use, especially by older people. And I'm like, yeah. And then I just stopped correcting people because it used to be the term, but it's not anymore. So then, but you're only here working on behavior. The big thing that you need to make people understand that I feel like is the biggest misconception is everything is a behavior, right? So they think like, oh, you're here to make my kid stop crying. I'm not here to make your kid stop crying. Your kid cries because they have a deficit in something. So I'm here to work on your child's overall development. Another big point you want to do. So what is ABA? What is a BCBA? Leslie, what's autism?
Oh, good question. It's a neurological deficit. There's a spectrum. There's a wide spectrum, and it encompasses communication, behavior, socializing.
That's a lot. That's
learning.
A lot. Come back. Okay, you're doing a good job.
Too much.
You're doing a good job describing me the DSM. The DSM does a very terrible job of saying things in a normal way people understand. Come back. So I want you to think. I'm someone off the street. I've only seen Rain Man and maybe like The Good Doctor on CBS. What is autism? That's what you get, honestly. Like, this is what you're going to get.
That's a good show. I watched Good Doctor.
I've never watched it.
That's gonna be on my vacation pass list now. Okay, so you start off really well. It's a neurological what?
Disorder.
Disorder.
That's the technical way. Do you know how disorder may sound to a parent?
Yeah, maybe.
Major.
Yeah. In essence, what autism is a different way of learning and seeing the world.
Yeah.
That is what it is. As simple as that.
Elementary.
Do you see it's more difficult to explain things in an elementary, non-technical manner than it is technically? Much more. So when you understand and grasp that your child learns and sees the world differently than people who are neurotypical, then you're more likely to understand your child may also have a different way of learning and a different rate of learning than you do. But you'll be surprised how much that takes that a long time to understand. But that's all it is, in its essence. Maria, why does my child have autism?
There is no known reasons like why people get autism. So nobody really knows.
Are you sure? Because I've read some research that putting my child on a gluten casein-free diet is going to help them cure them of autism. Is that true?
It's not like all the researches like that are non-empirically based, and even though there is some researches, like we need more research needed to, and more replication of studies needed to make sure it is like this. But as now, it's not proven.
So, good explanation. I would tell you, congruently right now, there was a randomized control trial done for children on a gluten casein-free diet versus not. There was no behavioral improvement in children on a gluten casein-free diet. However, if you eat well, do you perform well? Sure. I probably tell you most of us don't need to be eating a ton of gluten casein. So why not? If you want to do it, be my guest. But
it's actually also like part of like ethics, part of like ethics scenarios and questions. So what if parents insist of some non-empirical based things such as floor time or like gluten diet or horse riding or like something else? So like how do you address it and like how you need to behave?
So I would say as a profession, I'm only allowed to, in my ethics, ever recommend something that's empirically based. But lots of things started off as non-empirically based. So I would say, if I'm a parent, I would outweigh the risk and reward of something. If it's going to enhance the quality of my child's life, maybe not break my pocketbook, and there's no imminent risk in doing it, like riding a pony. I don't see any harm in riding a pony. Like, ride the damn pony. If you can afford it and you can, but don't expect your child to get cured through a pony. It's my job to tell you that riding the pony is not going to cure your kid of autism. Autism isn't curable, right? But if it isn't going to enjoy and enhance his quality of life, yeah, do it. Ride the damn pony. Why not? I don't know. So that's why I kind of take that approach of like, you need to be lighthearted and understand too, if your child had a deficit or an issue and there were other alternative treatments available, that maybe there is no empirically based data right now, because I always tell them, I don't know, maybe that'll change in the future. But I know that exposing your child to a breadth and depth of experiences is helpful for them. So if that includes riding a pony, baby, ride the damn pony. Be my guest. Like, I don't know. Now, if you want to put your child on a gluten casein-free diet, the first thing I tell people is, and it's great because I can speak from personal experience. Most people have a lot of difficulty sustaining that diet. I have to live with someone who's on that diet. You have no idea what it's like, how many things are unrestricted for a person who's gluten and casein-free. And as a child growing up, that is going to make things a bit restrictive. And it's going to require a lot of forethought and sight in their diet. Now, if you want to do it, I'm the first to help, I would support it. I will feed your child anything you want me to feed them that you find best. But I have to tell you, there's empirically, when they did that study, there was no different results. But I tell them all the time, when your child's at a birthday party and there's cake, you have to learn to say no. The more you say no to your kid, the more likely they are to have behaviors. That's just the way it is. If your child's a limited eater, you may be limiting the things that they can eat. And if your family also doesn't eat gluten, casein free, which is what happens a lot, right? I had a mom give her kid the best diet and she was eating a Big Mac in front of their face. Generally, children model what they eat. So I would say if you're just going to put your kid on that diet and you're not going to be on that diet, that's going to be really hard. And you would be so surprised how many parents actually do a gluten, casein free diet when they're the ones that have to do it. It's not easy. Now, I have had families do it. Like, I can think of a little girl who does it, but her mom is so obsessed with the kitchen. A very good cook, so obsessed with her kitchen that sometimes I think it comes at a deficit of time. She spends so much time cooking that she forgets, like, I'm supposed to play, like, do the recommendations of not, like, your whole life isn't eating. It's also learning to play, learning to have fun, like, and if you're spending 20 hours a day in the kitchen, what kind of cost and benefit is that for you? So that's how I would explain it. It's like, look at the pros and cons and always tell the person, I am only allowed to empirically recommend things that are empirically evidence-based, period. And when you don't feel comfortable, say Jessica's favorite phrase, that's making me feel really uncomfortable. I don't know how to. And also be good at saying, I don't know. That works too. Like, I've had people come up with some crazy things. I'm like, I have no idea. Let me look into that. I don't know. So I won't say no automatically. If I don't know about something, I'll say, oh, I don't know. Hold on. And I'll learn eventually. Okay, let me see. I have Miss Diane, I'm coming back to you. What is ABA?
I was actually trying to, because I'm like, okay, let's try to make it simple. Science that I use to like reduce behaviors, all-encompassing behaviors that we go on a day-to-day basis. That's backed up by a lot of research, which we call empirical research.
Getting warmer. So the way that you easily probably describe ABA is saying it's the science behind behavior that we use to improve the quality of people's life.
There you go. I was like, wait, I'm like, I feel like I'm missing something.
We're getting there, but that's the way you make it simple, right? The science, because it's using the scientific method, and like you can get into more detail, but simply, it's the science behind behavior that we use that applies to all people, just like the laws of physics apply to all of us, that we use to improve the quality of people's life. Not just people with autism, not just people with ADHD, it's the quality of all of our lives. Yeah. I used to have a supervisor that I like really cared for, and she was like, oh yeah, I used to tell my husband and my kids all the time. And then she would talk about how she does it all the time. And then she got her husband to make her sandwiches all day. Like, and it was nice. She kind of rerouted it, and she was the person who really taught me to learn to keep things lighthearted. Let me see. What is ABA? What is BCBA? What's autism? What causes autism? Yvette, this is your question. What's the difference between ABA and speech therapy? I get that a lot with early learners.
Ooh, I actually don't know. I was just thinking about that. Like, I don't know. I do know that ABA, we do. No, actually, I don't actually know anything about speech. I just know that we collect data, which is different. Okay, that's not from me actually knowing. That's from word of mouth. So I wouldn't be able to speak on that.
Collects data, but not the way we collect data. Anybody has a good answer to this?
That's very different. I mean, like, speech doesn't even nearly focus on the things we focus on.
Sometimes they do.
Yeah.
They do. They'll work on the functionality of communication many times.
Let's say like those behaviors that are going to impact like their ability to do these speech services. So I think in that
time I would say that. Do you know how you succinctly explain to a parent what speech and ABA is? Speech works from here in. I work from here out.
Speech works from here in, you said? What was it?
Here in, speech. From here out, I do. Right? They work, their specialty is to work on communication, just so you're aware. It is evidence-based, so you cannot say it's not evidence-based. It is very evidence-based work that works on the articulation and if you have a good one, the function of communication to improve someone's communication repertoire. That's the purpose and handling of speech. That's why we always need speech, because a lot of our kids are very delayed in speech. And then when they begin communicating, they talk like we all. Oh my God, my favorite man. How old are you, whore?
Oh.
It's a problem if the poor boy is trying to say bye-bye, but he says die. Or I'm 4 years old. That's a problem. So we do not work on articulation. The other thing that we also need speech for in specific, because there's a specialty with them, that they do feeding, and that's why you should know it's herein, that they will do esophageal test, send you to a gastroenterologist before we even touch or work on feeding. When people are like, oh, but like I have feeding, usually they mean it's a speech therapist that specializes in feeding. They don't always necessarily have the most effective feeding strategies, but at least they've done the medical part. You don't know if a kid can actually swallow. If a swallow test isn't done, I don't work on feeding. But I rarely work on feeding, to be honest, because generally kids eat what they're offered. Right? So that's the difference between both. And then OT, just so you guys have an idea. OT works on the fine and physical development overall of a child's functioning, and it tries to address that part that I would say ABA kind of does, but not really, is that sensorial part, right? So, and PT tends to work more on gross motor, and OT tends to work more on fine motor. And that's kind of how you know the difference. So
I also, I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
Say that again?
Okay. So I guess like, so I also have seen like OT addressing a lot like daily living skills.
Correct, because it affects the fine motor function of a child. So obviously if your kid can't pick up an M&M, they're not gonna be able to tie their shoes. If your kid doesn't have, I have learned the best things in terms of baby development with OTs. If your kid doesn't crawl, do you know that they're more than likely going to have a lot of difficulty writing? Because they never put pressure on their hands, and crawling is a very important stage of development physically, because it puts pressure on your hand in order for you to gain the strength to have fine motor skills. And a lot of our kids have very splintered development. So a lot of them sat, didn't really crawl, then they like walk, they didn't really, so then they tend to then have deficit issues in the beginning. So that's why it's very important to go through the stages. A lot of people didn't do tummy time with their kid. The day you bring your kid home from the hospital, you should do tummy time. I've learned that with OTs. What else did I learn from OTs? They hate the little sucky jar things. You know, those squeezable things? Don't ever bring that around an OT or a dentist. They're right. It doesn't develop like the sucking skills the best in a child. And then it also has deficits because people don't actually use spoons to eat anymore. They hate that. What else did OT? Oh, OTs hate those little walker things. Don't do that with your kid. I'm telling you, I've had some I've learned a lot of really good information from them. And like why? Because that tends to make someone more bow-legged.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't
I heard
have
that.
like good walking skills. You shouldn't leave your kid in a rocker for too long, because then that like develops a sensation of certain things. So, oh my God, I went way beyond time. I just saw it was 9:21. So sorry. Okay, I did give a pee-pee break though, so at least feel better. All right, we good, guys? I think this is a really good first shot. I will, if you'd like, Miss Vat, if you don't mind sending me your number. You use WhatsApp?
Yes.
Okay. It's easier to manage a skill and a group thing from there. If you can chat me your number, please. Or actually, here, let me put mine and send me a text. That's easier for me because I'm not that brilliant with this. Okay.
Are you gonna send us that, Pam?
Yes, I can. But I will
a cheat sheet
via WhatsApp. I can just upload it. There's my number. If you just send me yours, text me your number, and
Yes.
I'd be happy to send over the. Do you guys feel more equipped now to actually do a supervision? And you see, you knew a lot more than what you thought. You did. Everybody contributed to that list really well. Just saying, I'm proud of everybody. Positive feedback. What is this? Wait. Skinner. everybody. I used to have people at the camp, they were like, Skinner for you, Skinner for me. But everyone did a really good job contributing today. Is there anybody that has any questions on anything in terms of this? No? Okay. Where I would like for you to do is, I'm going to give you a networking skill homework. So I want to end every session with a homework. I want you to identify in the last 3 that we were saying. Find someone you'd like to mentor you. It can be in or out of PBS, I could care less. And it cannot be me, so do not put me. Because that's a given. I'm going to help you guys anyway, but I'm not the only resource. So I want you to really look at like, maybe who does someone work with that can mentor me so I can build up my colleague kind of network. Who is my colleague, or who are some people who I want on my colleague team? There's people who mentor you who should ideally be further along than you. People who should be on your colleague team or at the same level as you. And then I want you, oh my God, this sounds like the homework I gave one of my high functioning kids. I love it. So he's supposed to identify who can be a friend, identify who can be a colleague. So the homework that me and the CBT therapist give. And we give them criteria of how to find friends. I want you guys to give you criteria. A colleague would be someone at or within your same level. Probably like if you're a recent analyst, it would be someone who's also a recent analyst. So make and compile a list, 2 or 3 people. Who can be a mentor? Someone who's further down the line than you. If you're a BCABA, maybe somebody who's a BCBA. Somebody who like is a dream, like, I don't know. Maybe you want the Catalyst founder to be your mentor. I don't know, whatever. Like, fine. But try to pick someone you can actually make human contact with. So someone can be a mentor, who can be on your colleagues, and then resource and find from one of those people a good BCBA, a good speech pathologist, and a good OT. And maybe a decent neurologist. Yeah, I'll do that. Neurologist, speech, and OT. It could be a center. It could be like, where could I find these resources?
Jessica, you muted.
Jessica, you mute yourself here right now.
You said speech, neurologist, and PT?
OT, sorry. PTs, you're not going to work with a lot of kids who have PT issues. OT.
So where can we find it? Like, or give an actual person? Like,
either or. They could say, hey, I've worked with Breakthrough Clinic, and I really like person A. That's a really good, I'm trying to help build up your resource list right now. Because if you don't learn who's in your atmosphere, and, last homework. I want you to find 2 reputable other ABA companies.
In the area?
Well, hypothetically, please in the South Florida area, anywhere in the Tri-County, Palm, Broward, and Miami-Dade County. It's not as easy as you think. The reason why I want you to find other companies is you may find resources at another company that PBS doesn't have. For example, it's really important because we don't tend to have a lot of adult clients. I really want to find a very good adult resource place. And those are limited, very. Or we don't service Medicaid clients. What is a good Medicaid company? If someone asks me. I don't know. Actually, I do know, but I want you to know.
How would you define like reputable? Like, do we need to?
It could be a small business, but I would say someone in the past, maybe someone in that network that you're going to ask, has worked with. And they have seen conduct ethical work. I will give you this example so you cannot use it anymore. World Evolve was a company that I was very familiar with when I was coming up. It's not called We Behave, or I don't know who bought them. I don't know. Whatever, they changed the name. But it's World Evolve. They're always going to be World Evolve. World Evolve is one of the few reputable Medicaid companies that I have worked with. I know who works at World Evolve. So if I have a Medicaid client, and I do, for example, I have called World Evolve to take that client on. And they're a reputable company I worked with when I was doing ITDS. Then one of my old friends went to work with them. So I would know that if I had a Medicaid client, because this will actually happen to you. If your client loses insurance, and for example, they have Medicaid, what do they do?
And we don't provide. Yeah.
That's where I want you to kind of learn to find the resources. And that's why this is going to serve you
And it doesn't have to be like a certain, like they have to be up a certain number of years, or because I know that's something that's happened, like where people are like, oh, I'm starting my own place, and you're like, 6 months. Like I know somebody who works there, but like 6 months seems like not as reputable as a place that's more established.
I don't judge people based on how long they've been open, because I've known places that are open for 10 years and they're like, I don't feel like that's fair, because maybe somebody just got the resources to work during this time, or I don't know. I don't feel like the amount of years isn't always as necessary as much as like word of mouth and direct working with people. That's why I'm very big on like, have you worked with them? No, then I am not sending somebody over there. And then you will see, the reason why I want you guys to build this up is this entire industry. There's lots of people who are fraudulent. 1, 2, nothing. It's not like you can Google a place. Yeah, your insurance will give you a provider list, but you really will get to know the best of the best by word of mouth. Everything here is word of mouth and networking. I can name you the people who are specialists in AAC devices because I have worked with them. And if they don't know someone, they refer me to someone they have worked with, trained with, or whatever. I don't just walk into a place and say, oh, I know how to do AAC. No. I know a CBT therapist that I'm really comfortable sending people to. If she can't service that client, she'll send to somebody else. So you learn to network, because all the resources and being really fluent in resources are all captured through word of mouth. They are not Googleable. I don't know why, but that's actually the way life really works. Nothing is really Googleable, which is great because it's interesting, because Latin America works this way in all aspects. Who you know, when you know it. And I would say not even Latin America, probably most of the world works this way.
Oh no, Russia is like, you can go, like sometimes you can go up if you don't know specific people. Like if you know people, you can go up and up and up. If you don't, sorry, I mean.
Exactly.
Miami's like that.
Miami's like that too. This is a word of mouth. Like,
Pam, one last thing for you. So do you mind sending us this BCBA curriculum together with all the stuff you just said? Because it's a lot.
Wait, what? What do you want me to
No, like that's like all the homework. Can you list it? Because like.
Oh yeah, I can list the homework. Hold on, let me list it for myself. Okay.
Yeah, because, okay, well, wait, like we will add this and that and that and that.
Yeah, do you know people have perfect like visual memory? I have perfect auditory memory. 2 to 3. It's horrible when you're in a relationship. Don't worry. They're like, what you said was mentors. Okay, 2 to 3 ABA companies. I'll put that through the group chat, because since I you know, the homework is going to kind of evolve and change. I'll just put it through the group chat. Oh. Did I accidentally do this? I think I did. Hold on. Yvette, I accidentally sent my number to the wrong person.
I was just going to say, like, so my phone died, so then I'm, like, charging it, and I was like, I don't know if she sent it to me, but I'm on WhatsApp, and it's not. There's nothing here.
Okay. So, hold on. No. So I've defined reputable as someone with trusted results that's worked with them in the past. So someone directly you can talk to that you know that company has worked with. Okay. All right. So I'll repeat it again. 2 to 3 people who could be your colleague. I'm not going to put the definition of this because I think you guys remember. 2 to 3 people who could be your mentor. 2 to 3 ABA companies, absence of PBS in the area, reputable ABA companies. An OT, speech, and 2 to 3 OT or neurologist in speech. Okay. All right, I will send that. I don't know how to figure out this video situation. I will get it figured out with Maria and Amanda. You might give me, you need to give me like 3 days, but I will have it, at least it's recorded. So it's somewhere here in the atmosphere. I don't know where, but it'll be somewhere in the atmosphere. And I wanted to see if it's very late, guys. This generally never runs this long. So please take my word of it. It usually only lasts an hour and a half to 2 hours.
You get carried away talking.
I talk too much. I'm so sorry. My fault. I will get everybody a nice cafe whenever you're on distance or whatever. And I will do my best to make sure we keep it under 2 because I don't want to keep you guys from your families. Would it be better for us to privately, gotcha, Yvette, privately make the appointments for this week? Or do you guys want to stay on to do, whoever can stay on, we'll talk about the schedule right now. If you can't, that's totally okay. You can chat me at another time.
Stay. I don't know.
You're staying? Okay. So let me stop the recording.